This is Bobby. Bobby has a problem. He sits down to study, opens his notes, and reads everything carefully. He even writes things down again, just to make sure he understands it. But the next day, it's gone. And Bobby is confused, because he did study, so why does nothing stick? If you've ever felt like Bobby, this will explain exactly what's going wrong. And Bobby would really appreciate a like and a subscription if this helped. So let's begin. Most people think they are learning, but in reality they are not. They sit down, open their notes, and start reading. Line after line, page after page. It feels active. It feels focused. And because of that, it feels effective. But that feeling is misleading. What your brain is actually doing is very simple. It recognizes information. It sees something familiar and thinks, I've seen this before. And that creates a feeling of understanding. But recognition is not understanding. Understanding means something very different. It means you can take an idea and explain it clearly, in your own words, without looking. And this is exactly what most people never train. Instead, they stay passive. They look at information. They follow it. And then they move on. The brain does not need to work hard. So it does not build strong connections. That is why everything fades so quickly. Because the knowledge was never fully stored. It was only there while you were looking at it. You can test this immediately. Take something you think you learned. Close your notes. Now explain it. Slowly, step by step. If you get stuck, if you skip parts, or if you feel unsure, that is the proof that you never fully understood it. And this is where frustration starts. Most people think they need more time, more repetition, more discipline. But the real issue is different. Their method never required real understanding. It only required them to follow along. Real learning feels different. It forces your brain to slow down, to process information, to make sense of it without help. And that does not always feel good. Sometimes it feels slow. Sometimes it feels difficult. But that difficulty has a purpose. Now let's turn this into something you can actually use. If reading and rewriting don't work, then what should you do instead? The answer is simple, but it requires a different approach. You have to make your brain produce information, not just look at it. Here is how that works in practice. When you study something new, don't go through everything at once. Take a small part, just a few lines or one idea, and focus only on that. Try to understand it first, but don't spend too much time just staring at the text. Then comes the important step. You remove the material. You don't look at it anymore. And now you try to explain the idea in your own words, as if you had to teach it to someone who has no clue about the topic. At this moment, something changes. Your brain is no longer following. It has to think. It has to rebuild the idea from memory. And this is where you will notice gaps. Maybe you forget a step. Maybe something feels unclear. That is not a failure. That is exactly what you need. Because now you know what you didn't understand. So you go back, but not to read everything again. You only check the part that was missing. You fix that gap, and then you close your notes again and try to explain it one more time. This back and forth is what creates real understanding. But there is another step that makes this even stronger. After you finish, don't just move on and forget about it. Come back later. Not immediately, but after some time has passed. Maybe later that day or the next day. Now test yourself again. Try to explain the same idea without looking. It will feel harder, and that is a good sign. Because your brain now has to rebuild the information again, and that process makes the memory stronger each time. One more thing that helps a lot is to keep your explanations simple. If you can explain a concept in easy words, it means you truly understand it. If you need complex sentences or you get stuck in your own explanation, that usually means the idea is still unclear in your mind. This method might feel slower at the beginning, but in reality it saves time. In the end, learning is not about how many times you see something. It is about how well you can rebuild it without help. And once you start training that ability, everything becomes more stable, more clear, and much easier to remember.